Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name's Dee, and I'm the Learning and Development Specialist here at Leap-In. Today, we're going to be talking about the NDIS versus mainstream services. Firstly, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we work and live. We acknowledge the stories, traditions, and living cultures of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples on this land, and we commit to building a brighter future together. Now, this webinar is really for general information. I want to sort of give that disclosure first that our audience today will include NDIS participants. It will include family members of participants, our members at Leap-In, as well as NDIS providers and support coordinators. So Leap-In is a plan manager that does a lot of work in this space, and we talk to our members and our providers every day, but we're not the NDIA. So the information we're sharing is quite general. If you do have something that's specific to ask, we do recommend asking and checking in with the NDIA as well. So today, I'm going to talk about a range of topics or content. I'm going to explore sort of how the NDIS will regard these types of things compared to other services as well. We hear a lot from our Minister Shorten when he talks about how the NDIS is not meant to be the only canoe in the ocean. So it's not meant to be the only support that exists in the world of disability. And there are in future state going to be more and more services, but right now there are services that are available for our community, and in some instances these are available for more people than just NDIS participants and members. So I'm going to explore all of these different things and explain what resources are available as well. Now, when we reflect on what the NDIS is, believe it or not, it's now in its 11th year for 2024. Australia's first national scheme for people with disability. We know that it provides funding directly to individuals to then help them in their daily life or help them participate in their community and ideally reach their goals. Now, sometimes I'm going to show you information, and I might start by jumping onto the NDIS page. So if we had a look at ndis.gov.au, underneath this first hyperlink of understanding the NDIS, you'll see a link in the middle saying NDIS and other government services. And this is really crucial to understand some of the information I'm going to point you to. You can scroll down and you can see that there's lots of buttons of information around what the NDIS does and what employment does, or health and education and so on. Some of this information that I'm going to talk about is on this page or in some of the pages. Now, sometimes you're going to see on these pages where it says NDIS will do this and this other government service will do this or deliver this type of support. There are, of course, exceptions to the rule at times. So if you meet with your NDIS planner and they put an item of support into your plan that is different from what we see, it's essentially our evidence of approval, and we can then go and proceed with payment. So sometimes we see plans where something that typically isn't covered is covered. So I just want to sort of put that out there before we get too far into our content. So the first thing I want to do is I want to reflect on what mainstream and community supports are. So these are supports that are available for anyone in our community, and they work alongside the NDIS. Importantly, delivering services that meet standards of disability discrimination. For example, our education system means that children with disabilities should be able to access education. We can all walk into hospitals and receive a level of care if we're ill. Social housing has an obligation to ensure that buildings that are provided are accessible, that we don't have buildings which are really hard for us to enter. And then, of course, there's government services, of which these are some of those, and they also deliver support. And those services can range from income right through to different programs as well. And I'm going to touch on some of those programs. The first thing I want to talk about is assistive technology. Now, at Leap In, we talk to lots of our members who might be looking for assistive technology to be covered under the NDIS. And what I've got here on the page is some of the items that we often see requested, and sometimes they can be deemed fairly hard for the NDIS to fund. And there's reasons behind that around the items being risky. Sometimes there's been an incident of injuries. However, there are also community organisations that might be able to provide funding to assist. So as an alternative to looking at NDIS, you might want to consider approaching community-based organisations to provide support. Some of these include Variety. So Variety do wonderful work. You might have heard of things like the Special Children's Christmas Party. Leap In's actually a partner alongside sponsoring that event. The Big Red Bash. What Variety do is they deliver grants, scholarships and other activities for children who are sick, disadvantaged or disabled. The grants can then be used for a range of things. So trampolines and swing sets are really hard with NDIS to be funded, but that might be a means that Variety can deliver the support. They can also help with therapy costs, as well as wigs for kids with permanent hair loss. Now, just like the NDIS, where the NDIS will say, we don't fund this service because there's another government organisation involved, Variety likewise won't be involved in funding if the NDIS are delivering the support. So you can't necessarily get both supports, but let's listen to one of the stories from Variety and learn a little bit more as well.
Kyla mostly spends her spare time jumping on the new trampoline. She enjoys riding her bike out in the street with the neighbours and if her best friend's over. She enjoys dancing as well, competes in the Stedfords and things. She was a school captain. She's always looking to help others. She donated her ponytail to the Variety Hair with Heart Appeal.
I wanted to donate my ponytail because I was helping someone else feel confident. Little did I know when I donated I'd be receiving some hair from them myself.
We first noticed Kyla's first patch about 2 weeks before her actual diagnosis. Then lumps of hair started falling out, so I took her to the GP.
Alopecia is an autoimmune condition. Basically, it's your immune system chucking out your hair follicles because they think they're like bad cells. I was supposed to go to school after my doctor's appointment, but I didn't because I was very upset.
I tried my best to give her all the support she needed, which included shaving my head twice. For me and her father, just worrying about the emotional sort of toll on Kyla, and that particular wig was what she wanted to make her feel comfortable. Quite shocked to find out it was close to $5,000. You haven't had a chance to save for those sorts of things. We were so blessed that Variety did give Kyla her grant so she was able to get her wig.
When the wig arrived in time for the formal, I kind of felt a bit relieved.
There was a lot of emotions there. Grandparents came up to see her off. She just looks stunning.
I was just really happy because I could be like all the other girls.
From that moment on, I felt she's just reinvented herself. She's gone to high school with a confidence that I honestly don't think she would have had if she'd had hair. We're extremely grateful to Variety for the wig. I see her going a long way.
Another one to consider is the Morris Children's Fund. This was previously the St. George Children's Charity. And what they do is they look to improve the quality of life of children with severe physical and multiple disabilities individually and as a group. They have a Grants for Good program, and it looks at fundraising to provide support for the purchase of equipment. And this one's a little bit different. The families can sometimes be involved in the fundraising, and then that's then distributed on to organisations and not-for-profits as well. I did have a question around AT for adults as well. And I want to sort of comment that sometimes I will talk a lot about children because a lot of the people that we support at Leap In are disabled children. But a great source of questions to explore funding or support is your local MP or your local council. They often will have programs to support people in the community. What I've done here is I've got some results. I was looking for an iPad grant, and you can see different organisations will have different funding opportunities. Also, the Leagues Club, I've got a image of, I think it's Kedron Wavell, which is one of the sporting clubs here. Sometimes the Leagues Clubs, the sporting clubs, have something in their constitution around supporting community. I would definitely talk to my local council person because they should be able to give you some guidance and assistance as well. So these are other avenues outside of the NDIS that exist to help our community. Something else I want to talk about is state-based supports. And I'm going to preface this and acknowledge that Minister Shorten is talking a lot about foundational supports, which would be a future support from our states to run hand in hand really with the NDIS. But even right now, each state is delivering support to disabled residents, and that covers things such as parking permits, companion cards, guide, hearing and assistance dogs, as well as travel subsidies and passes. I was talking to someone the other day about the fact that an adult who might hold a disability pension card, they can also obtain quite discounted long distance rail tickets and enjoy a rail journey if that's something they want to explore. So there's programs like this that exist by each state government. There's also sports and recreation programs, and there's vouchers on offer. Let me have a look here. Just going to head back to that NDIS page to show you a little bit more. And I know that there's a few questions, and Christy is sharing right now some information as well. So under the NDIS and other government pages, services page, I'm going down the bottom to where it says disability services. On this page, it breaks it right down into each particular state, and I'm going to explore some of those links with you today. I'm in Queensland, so I'm going to choose the Queensland site, and I think this has actually changed. They've changed the state government here, so I'm just going to ensure I've got... There are community support information here around our different services such as hearing and assistance dogs. I know a question came up about an animal who is able to provide disability support for someone who's not blind. So on this page here, you can explore here. There's all the different services are linked. There's links to more. I was talking then before about the discounted travel scheme. So you can explore here travel subsidies, concessions and passes. So each state government will operate a little bit differently, and they will have also links to things like the companion card. The companion card recognises that somebody requires lifelong support, and each state government will issue the companion card. It allows somebody to attend events, transport with their companion, whether that's their partner or their carer or support worker and things like that. So there's a range of services that you can explore here. Guide, hearing and assistance dogs is where somebody else has asked a question. Sports and recreation is something, for example, in Queensland, in different states, they issue different types of vouchers at times for people, young children or young people that hold healthcare cards. So in Queensland, we've got a Fair Go voucher, which can also be utilised as well. So explore your state governments. I know that when I asked where everybody was located, we've got locations all over. Every state government is a little bit different. Explore that state government page to become familiar with the supports that exist. I'm also going to take a moment to talk about health. So health, as per the NDIS page, health is responsible for a range of services, and that includes emergency services, going to GPs, going to paediatricians and psychiatrists, medical specialists and more. Care in public and private hospitals, as well as medicine, pharmaceuticals and aids. Something that comes up for us at Leap In is around diagnosis. And I'm sure a lot of people sometimes wonder that question, would the NDIS help pay for diagnosis? So health are responsible for assessing, diagnosing and treating illnesses and injuries, including assessing and diagnosing disabilities such as autism. Medicare will provide a small rebate for some of these costs, and I acknowledge fully that that's, if you're pursuing a private diagnosis, sometimes the costs can be quite high, but a government service such as Medicare are providing support. So the NDIS doesn't work to deliver support if there's another government funded service. Commonly we'll be asked for children. We know that the early childhood access can be granted before 7. To receive support after 7, a diagnosis of a disability will be required. So unless that has been stated in the plan, the NDIS won't fund that diagnosis. So that is health, and some rebates can apply for this cost. And just to show you as well where this information is, back to that NDIS page, underneath NDIS and the health system, on this page, there's a range of examples, such as what is the health system responsible for? When we open this hyperlink here, it says here, assessing and diagnosing disabilities. So it is available there on that website. Now, if somebody was looking to explore diagnosis, of course, you've got the option to utilise the public systems or a private system, which can be very costly. There are alternatives as well, such as reaching out to your local university clinics. The reason why I'm bringing this up is that the university clinics often offer assessment and support, so therapy type services, as part of their clinics for a range of services. And it could be something like physio or speech therapy or psychology, where university students who are training to become allied health professionals are working under supervision. So part of the access you can find with the university clinics is that they might be able to support you with assessment that is quite cost effective. That's usually twice a year or so that they will open those clinic lists. So that's an option as well. If I was in a town or a city that has university clinics, and those university clinics would be able to support me to obtain a diagnosis, that's something that I'd pursue as well. So check in with your local uni clinic. So university clinics is something I'd look at for assessment. Also therapy, that might be something to explore as well. Now, when I do talk about assessment, so I want to also acknowledge that assessments are funded by the NDIS. Absolutely. It's quite common that an allied health therapist might do an assessment, particularly at the start of a plan, as a means of a benchmark. So if we looked at a longer plan, so just say someone has an NDIS plan for 3 years, doing an assessment at the start allows them at the end of the 3 years to see how they've moved towards their goals. It can also be helpful for the therapist to determine strategies or which type of approach or support to take. So assessments are funded by the NDIS, just not that diagnosis, if that makes sense. In regards to medicine, health are responsible for medicines and pharmaceuticals. So even if things are not subsidised under the Pharmaceutical Benefits Scheme, the PBS, the NDIS cannot pay for it. I also want to acknowledge that if you are supporting, or if you're a person with disability and you haven't applied for your healthcare card, that's something that the Department of Social Services can assist with, and it can see the cost of medicines come down when they're on the PBS incredibly. So explore that as well. Now, the NDIS can't be used to pay gap fees. So if I looked at, I was going to a therapy appointment, let's say I was going to a psychology appointment, I might be paying say $200 for that appointment, and normally Medicare would cover some of that cost. You can't claim against Medicare and then charge that gap to the NDIS. If another Commonwealth program is involved, so whether it's Medicare or any of your private health, you have to choose one or the other. You can't use the NDIS to capture that gap. So holistically, the NDIS is responsible for a range of services that include home modifications and personal care and skills development to help someone become more independent, allied health and therapy that is needed for your disability, assistance technology, therapeutic behaviour supports, and non-acute wound care. So that means something where someone's not going to hospital. Let's just say someone's had continence issues and they've got some wound dressing, perhaps, maybe something's happened. It would be that wound dressing would be covered, but if you were heading off to hospital, then health would be looking after that. They won't fund the diagnosis and assessment of health conditions and disabilities, no medication, no clinical care for mental health conditions or palliative care or treatment of wounds by a nurse or anything to do around preparing and planning around hospital, general hearing and vision services. So I want to acknowledge I'm wearing glasses, so I have prescription glasses, and all of us have the opportunity to go and have our eyes tested by an optometrist, and some of us can receive standard prescription glasses. Sometimes someone has vision needs that are beyond standard prescription glasses, and they might assist them if they've got a vision-related disability. And it's those specific examples that the NDIS will fund. So now I'm going to move on to education. In terms of what the NDIS will deliver in education, it looks at the assistive technology and equipment to help functioning. So it could be things like a wheelchair or hearing aids. Personal care at school really does talk to personal living care. So it's if we've again got someone who has either continence or maybe they've got feeding support needs, it would be someone to come and assist with those tasks. It's not a teacher aide or anything like that. It is personal care tasks, or they can deliver support for transport if they need help with transport to school due to the disability. Therapy can be done at school, but it's not for school purposes. And it really does need to be negotiated with the school or region that you're in, as well as assistance to transition to post-school options. And I talk about that in one of our other Leap In Presents, where we explore the support that can be given around looking at studies and employment. Now, the education departments in each state should be providing all teaching and learning assistance, and that includes tutors, whether someone is in alternative education or even homeschool. Curriculum adjustments to help someone's individual learning needs. So when we think about learning disabilities or learning delays, that is really education specialty. So they should be delivering the support to teachers to help adjust the curriculum, as well as general training for them to learn how to support children or students with disability. Learning aids should be provided, and it might be specifically such as if someone has fine motor issues and handwriting is really hard, they might be providing a tool such as an iPad to use at school, where the person could either use a keyboard or they could use tools such as text-to-speech to allow them to do their work alongside their peers without relying on handwriting. They should also be providing inclusion support such as Auslan interpreters. So we will commonly see a question come through where someone will ask, can I claim for tutoring against my NDIS plan? So the NDIS won't cover anything related to teaching and learning, such as tutoring, because it is the responsibility of the education. So it is important to really talk to your educational institute and work through the needs that your person has and what support looks like, and ensure that that's being delivered and escalated where possible. I'm now going to move into talking about support for carers. Now, this figure here is probably a little bit older. I've actually pulled it from the Australian government site. So on the whole, 2.65 million Australians care for someone with disability, a medical condition, mental illness, or someone who's frail due to age. Now, the Australian government provides carer support via a 3-stage model. And I'm going to jump in now back to that NDIS page because there's some really important links here. Under understanding NDIS and other government services, scrolling down, and I'm going to that disability services page. So on these links before, I was looking for the state governments. About midway down, we've got links here for carers. When we link to this page, like I said, some of the information's older. Don't worry about looking at the budget 2021 or 22. We're looking at current links for programs and services. And there's also information here around payments that some carers may be able to receive financial support. So the 3-step programs that are funded by the Australian government for carers is the Carers Gateway, and I'm going to explore that page. There's Young Carer Bursary Program, and that's for people who are under 25. And there's My Time peer support groups, and they meet all over Australia quite regularly for parents and carers of young children with disability to connect and form connection. I've said connection twice. Carers Gateway, let's have a look at their website together. Now, NDIS is about the person with disability. What the Carers Gateway does is provide support and services for carers across a range of services, and it can include things such as counselling, where if I was the carer, need to talk to someone for my own needs. So I'm not talking about my child's disability needs now. I'm talking about what I need. They provide coaching and skills development opportunities. So I, as a carer, could access training and services. So that way, if I wanted to, I could look at employment opportunities. I've heard of packages that can include things such as cleaning support or lawn care. Also importantly, on the right here is a link to emergency respite. So if a carer becomes sick or injured and can't continue to care, they will arrange for emergency respite services. So this one's really tricky because I think if we've got to head off to hospital, who's going to look after our family members? You can contact the Carer Gateway and they will arrange that emergency respite and have someone deliver support. So planned respite, it says, also is available through their tailored support packages. This is around supporting the informal support. So please look at the Carers Gateway if that is something that you need support with. I'm just going to see, I've got a story I'm going to share from them as well.
My name's Courtney and I'm a carer for my mum who has multiple sclerosis. I became a carer in about 2003 when I was 8 years old. Whereas now I don't really see it as a label, I see it as an aspect of my life and my personality. Because MS is so unpredictable, you never know what each day is going to bring. So some days mum might be extra tired, so I will pick up the slack and do triple the amount of work around the house, or whether it's online banking or paying bills or remembering appointments. Talking to other carers does help because they're in similar situations. They have similar occurrences and things that happen at home. Carers need that support because I think they're the main people that will not source it. Because they're giving so much support to that person, they often burn themselves out and they feel a bit overwhelmed. They can, get themselves into such a rut because they're putting all their energy and focus onto this person and not onto themselves. So it's really important that they do reach out and understand that there are resources and people out there that can help give them that assistance, give them that guidance and time off, just so they can be themselves and recharge for a bit to then continue doing the wonderful role that they're doing. Connecting to services does definitely help you get through the rough times, because without those services and resources, and even just knowing that they're there, it does take that little bit of pressure off you.
This is where I'm up to before. That type of stuff.
I do find counselling to be a big help. I've used it for many different things, from like my mum's illness to my parents' divorce to just general school drama. So it's nice to have someone else in a safe space where you can go, hey, this is how I'm feeling, get that off your chest so you can give the best care that you can to that person that you're helping to look after. Caring for my mum has enriched my life a lot. It makes me a lot more patient, it makes me a lot more loving, it makes me a lot more humble, it makes me a lot more happier. My relationship with my mum has always been very loving, very caring, your normal mother-daughter dynamic, but because I've had to care for her and see her in a different light, in a more vulnerable light, and me having to take on the parental role, you just get a whole new appreciation and respect for that person that has to go through that, but at the same time it just brings you so much closer than you can ever imagine. So I love her to bits, she's the best.
So like I said, there's a few things that they've touched on in that video, especially around that counselling piece, which is incredibly important. When we look at things like respite, we know that the NDIS can provide respite for our members, and it's usually flexible funding to allow them to be supported for up to 28 days per plan year. So that can support the informal supports as well by giving them a break. And look, honestly, that can take some time to arrange, particularly if you're waiting to go through your plan review and then have that discussion. So Carers Gateway can provide respite as well, which is that emergency piece. So this is an example of where both supports can happen. It might be that moving forward, that respite is also supported with the NDIS. Now, whilst I talk about counselling services, there are also a range of free services that you can access. These are all funded services. There's great websites. Sometimes you might talk to someone on the phone, you might explore their website and find resources. So at any time, there is also these types of services available. Lifeline, Reach Out, Beyond Blue. If you're supporting someone who's younger, they can also reach out to Kids Helpline, who support right up to 25. So there's incredible services, so please always reach out if needed around the service or support you need. I'm now going to work through homelessness. Again, this is something that we will have questions about sometimes. Will the NDIS support me if I'm to be homeless? Now, there is a housing and community infrastructure system that will provide emergency as well as long-term accommodation for people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. And we've got some services that are linked there that do excellent work in this piece. Homelessness is much again, a much quicker demand than what you might negotiate with your NDIS plan. Now, the NDIS does deliver support due to the disability, and that can include things such as if you're in social housing and you need home modifications to make that home accessible, they could deliver the home modifications. You might also look at skills development where you might learn how to obtain and maintain accommodation if you have a functional impairment, or learn living skills such as cooking, cleaning, budgeting, how to pay rent, how to explore the world of accommodation. So that's really around that building capacity to really build your independence as well. There is a really great site called Ask Izzy. Ask Izzy is able to be accessed by anyone, regardless of even if you don't have a disability. I see lots of people using this to explore things that they might need to support their family. So you can explore things like food banks or housing support or a whole range of services. You can literally type it in and fine-tune it for supports that are in your area. So Ask Izzy is a great site to explore to find different support services. In regards to housing, I have a Leap In Presents where I talk all about the different housing options that are available to be delivered as part of the NDIS. Planned and ongoing support can be delivered, and it might touch on things such as specialist disability accommodation or supported independent living, individualised living options, as well as home modifications. But some of those take time. It can take up to 90 days in most instances for the housing supports to be delivered. So if you need shorter, quicker homelessness support, look at Ask Izzy and connect to the other community services. When we talk about finding work, again, come to my next Leap In Presents where I'll talk about employment support. So the employment system helps employers hire and include people with disability in the workplace. And that looks at training and induction when you start work and making sure that work is modified, that equipment is able to help you do your job, as well as work following things such as disability discrimination laws, such as making reasonable adjustments. Now, the job access is funded by the employment arm of the government, and they have what's called the Employment Assistance Fund. It gives financial help to eligible people with disability and mental health conditions to go and buy a whole range of equipment or services. So what that can look like is it can look like making adjustments to your workplace physically or modifying work vehicles or equipment. It can look at specialist service for employees with specific learning disorders and mental health conditions, and disability awareness training for the workplace. So that is typically what the EAF should be delivering. So that is something that's funded by the Department of Employment Services. In terms of what the NDIS will do, it's a little bit like what I talked about with school. So if someone needs personal care and support, or if they need transport support to work because they can't use public transport without difficulty because of the disability, or if it's part of that piece around transitioning to work, learning about relationships or learning around things like wearing the right clothes or getting to work on time and all those independent tasks that you need for your disability, absolutely the NDIS will deliver that support. But employment services, and there are specialist disability employment services, they're probably the best place to ask for those other pieces. In summary, the NDIS is going to fund a range of services, and this is direct off their website. So the supports relate to your disability needs, helping you reach your goals, helping you connect to others socially or economically, it's being value for money, effective and beneficial, helping you maintain your informal supports, and of course is the responsibility of the NDIS to fund. Hopefully, what I've shared today has given you some more insight into some of the services that exist alongside the NDIS to deliver support.